Alright, so the Season 9 patch notes for Overwatch 2 were just leaked, and I want to say I'm fucking terrified. We've got a lot of buffs and a couple nerfs that I want to go over with you guys and just kind of give my opinion on how I feel about them. These screenshots are from Rupal's stream. He was the one that leaked all of these patch notes. I'm not sure whether or not that makes him credible or anything like that. Keep in mind these are leaks, so we don't know if these are going to be changed or if these leaks are even real to begin with. This definitely isn't me coping either, mainly because I wanted to see like a global nerf across the board, and we got the exact opposite in these notes. This is just me saying that until Blizzard comes out with official patch notes, I'm going to be a little skeptical. But before we get into the patch notes, be sure to like the video. It really helps out the channel. If you disagree with anything that I'm saying here, you feel free to dislike it. Any engagement fucking helps, please. Also leave a comment on what you think about these changes. I have a feeling a lot of people were not expecting this to be the direction they took for Season 9. And if you want more content like this, be sure to subscribe, because I'm just starting out here and there is a 94% chance that you aren't subscribed. So if you want to help me out, that'd mean a lot to me. Alright, obligatory shilling over. I know that's cringe, thanks for putting up with it. But everyone says it works, so let's just get into the patch notes. Once again, this is coming from Rupal's stream. I will leave a link to the Reddit thread that I found going over all these notes in the description. And the first major change is a global projectile size increase. It says they put this here so people can hit their shots easier. This includes hit scan heroes like Soldier 76 and I'm assuming Sojourn, who have an increased size to their bullets now. It's not a massive increase, it's like literally 0.05 units, whatever they're using for the units. He's not explicitly named here, but Mauga also falls into this hit scan with a high spread and rate of fire category. That being said, Mauga's already pretty threatening, and they also just nerfed him, so I don't even think they know what to do when it comes to this hero. This could also include Sombra, which just sounds like a nightmare to me. Yeah, let's let her be silent and invisible with no time limit, and now let's let her hit more of the shots in her 60 round magazine. 160 DPS and she can shoot for over 3 seconds. That's almost 500 HP, and don't forget the 100 damage over time you're gonna get if you get hit by her virus. This is enough to take out like any hero in the game. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm really worried that the next season is just going to be like all rogues. Like it's just going to be Roadhog, Soldier, Sombra, fucking Zenyatta, and Moira. That's going to be like the meta comp. And oh god, please don't let that happen. Anyways, we've also got heroes like Cassidy getting a buff to their projectile size. The buff is a little bit bigger than the others at 0.08, and this is for these single shot hit scans. I'm really hoping this doesn't include like Widowmaker, because like having her hit more of her shots is just a nightmare, especially when people don't think that snipers and one-shots should be put into a team-based game. We've also got heroes like Roadhog and Ramatra getting the same buffs as Soldier 76 with an increase of 0.05. Keep in mind the category that Roadhog and Ramatra are in also could include Orisa, and I am still very unsure on how I feel about giving Orisa a buff. We've also got Pharah getting the largest projectile size increase in the entire patch with 0.15. You'll also see a little bit later that she gets a ton of reworks to her kit, and I actually kind of like this. I feel like Pharah's kind of fallen out of the meta. You don't really see her getting picked a lot. That being said, she's super annoying, but even though I don't like fighting her, I can admit that she probably needed a buff. We've also got Hanzo getting an increase of 0.1 to his projectile size, and once again, did we really need Hanzo hitting more shots? The abilities that are not included in this projectile size increase are Ana's Sleep Dart, Brigida's Whip Shot, Orisa's Javelin, Reinhardt's Fire Strike, Roadhog's Hook, Sigma's Accretion, and Sombra's Virus. It also looks like every hero in the game has gotten a health buff of around 50 to 25 points, depending on if you're like a DPS or if you're a tank. I'm not going to go over every single one of them. Once again, the link to the patch notes are in the description. But here is the big one. The global health regeneration patch. Each hero will now regenerate 20 HP per second after being out of combat for 5 seconds. And this is just absolutely insane in my opinion. Like, they said it was toned down. 20 HP a second is toned down to you? For reference, Zenyatta's Orb of Harmony heals 30 HP per second. Lucio's crossfade heals 16 HP per second within a proximity of 12 meters. They said this passive was toned down. It heals faster than a support can. I know I said this in my last Overwatch video on like if Overwatch is still good in 2024. This was like right as the global healing passive was announced. You should check that video out after you watch this one. But there's no way that this incentivizes team play. Think about how long it takes you to run from spawn to like the point, but like not quite at the checkpoint, just a little bit before. That's easily enough time for the entire other team to heal to full health. And you don't even need a support for that. Another couple examples on how this would not incentivize team play is, let's say a Widowmaker for example. She gets hit with a couple shots up in her perch, just hide behind a wall for 15 seconds. You know, you may have let your team 4v5 while you're healing up, but at least you're back to full health. Let's say a Sombra didn't do enough damage to kill the supports in the backline. That's totally fine now. She can just zip off and go invisible for 10 seconds. She's good as new. What are you cooking, Blizzard? You're not Heisenberg. Stop cooking the meth, alright? You've given the entire roster an Orb of Harmony. What are you I'm actually in shock here. They want this game to be Call of Duty so bad. That's probably why they laid off the entire fucking lore team. Oh yeah, fuck you for that too, by the way. They said this was toned down. Oh my. 20 HP a second is toned down for you? I gotta get off this topic. Oh my god. Globally, ultimate costs have been increased by 10%, which is kind of good and bad. I would have rather seen the overall effectiveness of the ultimate abilities go down instead. A lot of this game's character comes from each hero's ultimate ability, so just seeing them less per game, it seems a little bit bittersweet to me. Of course, I don't want to see them getting spammed, but I don't think getting your ult after 3 or 4 team fights is really a bad thing. Moving on to the ability patches, and we've got a lot of buffs here. Let's start with the tanks. The damage for the outer radius of D.Va's ult has gone up. It's gone from 900 to 1,000 damage, and the size of the radius has gone up from 4 to 6 meters. This is kind of a rough one in my opinion. I know you can like just run behind a wall to protect yourself from D.Va's ult, but it's not uncommon to see a D.Va get 3, 4, even 5 kills from just placing her ult in the right spot. So this is a huge buff for something that I didn't really see needing a buff. Doomfist got a buff for his rocket punch. Not a huge one, but once again, I don't think Doomfist needed to be buffed. It's just kind of in line with the HP increase that everyone got. Junker Queen got a 50% increase to her wound damage, which is okay. I guess we'll have to see how this plays out. Anything getting boosted by 50% is just crazy to me though, so I could definitely see this being something that's very scary to see in the future. Reinhardt got a couple buffs that are in line with the HP increase that everybody got, so overall, I would say Reinhardt stayed the same, if not got a little bit worse. Winton got a buff on his Tesla cannon. And Zarya got a buff on the width of her plasma beam. The damage heroes lost their reload speed passive, and instead they get a passive that nerfs the healing received on the other team if they're dealing damage to a hero. Ashe's ult got a buff that is in line with the global HP increase. Cassidy got a huge buff. I'm not sure how this is going to work out in game, but on paper, this looks insane. Echo got a buff on her beam width, and her ult now has 50 more HP. So instead of being capped at 300, it's capped at 350. People were also saying that Genji's ult got nerfed, but I think it's a buff. I think this means the time it takes for him to swing his blade is reduced. I think this gives him a couple more swings on his ult, assuming he doesn't dive into the back of the team and die instantly. Hanzo got a big buff on the damage and cooldown of his storm arrows, and Pharah got a ton of changes. Like I said earlier, there's too many for me to go over. It's a page of just Pharah changes. It would take forever for me to read them off, but if you are interested in seeing those changes, once again, the link to the Reddit thread is in the description. The cliff notes are that she's got more aerial mobility now, but now she can't recover fuel when she's in the air. She deals less damage when she uses her rocket jump, and she has a new secondary ability. Her rockets also go faster and deal more damage now, as well as the increase to her projectile size that we said earlier. Pharah mains are rejoicing everywhere right now, and Symmetra gets a buff to her beam width, going from 1.5 to 0.2. Moving on to supports, you guys must be feeling really awful hearing about all these patch notes, but you still have the best passive in the game, and it just got buffed. Your passive healing will now start 2.5 seconds after combat, which is absolutely insane in my opinion. And this is coming from someone who plays support. 2.5 seconds is no time at all. But moving on to the ability changes. Brigida's flail damage is buffed in line with everyone's HP increase. Kiriko's kunai is now smaller, so every projectile in the game got a size increase except for Kiriko's that got nerfed. It's a sad day for Kiriko mains, me included. As a Kiriko main, I'm not going to cry and say that she didn't need to be nerfed, but also being the only hero in the entire roster to get a projectile size nerf when almost everyone else got a buff is just wild to me. I would have much rather seen her get a nerf to her headshot bonus damage instead of like her projectile size, because even I can admit her headshot bonus is insane. Lucio got a buff on his sound wave, and the knockback on his boop now goes 12% farther, and you will also be stun locked for another 0.15 seconds after getting hit by one. Mercy also got some really good buffs. The movement speed on her Guardian Angel is now half a second faster, and she also got a massive buff on her sympathetic recovery. It used to heal her 25% of what she healed, now it goes up to 40%. She's going to be insanely bulky in the right hands now. And lastly, we have a buff for Moira. Her Biotic Grasp now does 65 damage instead of the usual 50, and her acquisition radius, meaning how easily she can just lock onto you without having to aim, also got buffed from 0.6 to 0.7 meters. I'm really not a fan of this. I think you should have to aim in a shooter game. Symmetra in Overwatch 1 was a mistake, and they admitted they made the mistake, and now she just has a straight beam. So why admit that you made the mistake, change that character, just to repeat it with Moira? It's just backwards to me. I don't know. I also don't think Moira really needed a DPS buff. Everyone already called her a third DPS. Why did you buff her DPS? It does... You don't need to aim 20 meters! 20 meters range, you don't need to aim! I'm going crazy. I'm going crazy. They're also adding new structures to Junkertown. This is meant to give you more cover when it comes to long-range fire. This should also encourage people to group up and find cover together. And there is also a new nighttime lighting mode they're adding to the game. I'm not sure if this is like a dark mode that you get like with browsers and things like that, or if this is like, you know, a nighttime version of maps. I'm down with dark mode for menus, not so much for low light maps. I'm not a big fan of those. Overall, I really hope this season works out and it's not just a complete mess when it's released. But the way the numbers are looking on paper, it looks like it's about to be a disaster. It really just seems like this is going to be the season to end all seasons when it comes to power creep, which seems really counterproductive considering a lot of the devs were trying to counter power creep in this update. Almost every hero got multiple buffs to their DPS as well as their HP pools, and that's really tough considering I personally wanted to see like the opposite happen. I really wanted to see like a 15% nerf roster wide on damage per second. They said they wanted to address the issue of damage spikes in this season, and I'm not sure the way to do that is by making projectiles larger as well as making them do more damage. The healing passive is also really concerning to me for reasons that I've brought up multiple times. They say it's to encourage team play, but I really see this as a huge buff to flanking playstyles, which is, it's just not team-focused gameplay. A large part of me wants to believe these leaks aren't true. I'm really hoping they're not. But they could be real, and we could be in for an absolutely crazy Season 9 that just flips the entire game on its head. Let me know what you think about these patch notes down in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what you guys think about them. Anyways, that's all I have for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. And don't take anything I say too seriously. I'm just a dude on the internet.